Start for Bobby to get
Oh,
in.
my turn. I was actually said Carrie.
Oh, sorry. Bye.
Oh,
I'm glad you can hear me.
Terry. There's Terry.
Hi, Ken. Ken, can you hear me? Apparently not.
Is Ken able to hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Greetings, everyone. I am going to start by closing our executive session and resuming our public meeting. This is the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. There are a couple ways to participate. Thank you all for being here in person. We are also live streaming on Zoom and available on YouTube. I'll start with roll call. Commissioner Briscoe. Here. Commissioner Bell.
Present, sort of.
And Commissioner Shepard is here as well. All three commissioners are present. We have just one advisory committee meeting to read. The Marine Advisory Committee meeting, or the MAC, will meet next on November 14th at 6 p.m. here in the Harbor Center building. That's an in-person meeting. BIAC, or Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee meetings, are done for 2023 and will resume next year. Our first order of business is public comment. If you have any public comment and are here in person, you can come up to the mic and let us know who you are, and you have 3 minutes. Do we have anybody signed up today? Does anybody wish to provide comment? All right, anybody on Zoom? If you have public comment, you can unmute yourself. Hearing none, we will move on and have another opportunity for public comment at the end of our regularly scheduled business. Our first item is our consent agenda. Carrie?
Yeah, motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Commissioner Briscoe? No, I have none. Commissioner Bell?
I have none, thank you.
Same here. We're ready to vote.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0. Okay, we've got two presentations today. The first is a SEDS update, and we have Jennifer Novak.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Can everyone see the cover page?
Yes.
Yep.
So good evening, commissioners. For the public, my name is Jennifer Novak. Thank you for the time on the agenda today. I'm a consultant to the Port of Bellingham, and I was the primary author and project manager for the Whatcom County SEDS update in 2022. So a SEDS is a comprehensive economic development strategy, and this document is overseen by the guidance of the EDA, or the Economic Development Administration, which is the Federal Bureau of Economic Development in the United States. And I'm here today to provide you with a preview of the SEDS progress report. Since the approval of the document by the EDA in April 2022, I've been working with the Port's Economic Development Division, and thanks John, Corey, and Gina, who are all there with you in person. And I've been serving as an auditor and an evaluator of the SEDS, which means I've basically been gathering information and data on progress on our SEDS goals. So just to remind everybody about what the SEDS is, so the Whatcom County SEDS provides the basis for the Economic Development Division's work plan. It also provides consensus and direction on economic development to the Port's many partners, including our service providers in Whatcom County, as well as to the cities and the county. This document was completed over an 18-month period and was informed by extensive stakeholder engagement with the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, and included a review committee with members from every jurisdiction. So all of the cities, the county, the port, and both tribes. We had a 30-day public comment period for this document, and afterwards it was unanimously approved by Whatcom County Council, which I think says a lot about the level of outreach and stakeholder engagement that occurred within our community and among our key stakeholders and businesses in Whatcom County. It was also approved by the EDA in April 2022. So the document itself has 6 overarching goals, each with multiple sub-goals, as well as an action plan. And that action plan outlines specific tasks and steps to be taken by partners and collaborators. So these 6 important goals, just to remind everyone of what they are. Goal 1 is our business support goal. This really focuses on building upon and strengthening Whatcom County's economic base, which is our traded sectors. And as a side note, this goal currently includes housing and childcare as sub-goals, since they are so critical to business retention and expansion in Whatcom County. Goal 2 is our infrastructure goal. And as the commission knows well, enhancing our critical infrastructure is key to future development in Whatcom County. Goal 3 is about developing a skilled workforce, expanding educational attainment, and working with our employers to align their needs with the programs and curriculums that are locally available. And this goal, I would say, is particularly important as a lot of our employers in Whatcom are experiencing ongoing labor shortages and skill shortages since the pandemic began in March 2020. Goal 4 is about creating and deepening our relationships with our regional partners, as well as our cross-border partners and neighboring counties. Goal 5 is our DEI goal, which we hope to really bake into all of our work going forward. And then finally, goal 6 is our resiliency goal. And this one, as this document was written primarily in late 2020-21, was really intended to continue to support not only disaster and economic resiliency in Whatcom County, but also recovery from COVID-19 closures and the US-Canada border closure. So how are we going to measure progress on these very important goals? So within the document, we actually have a full section on our evaluation framework. So that framework identifies a few modes of progress review. So one is our ADO quarterly review. So the Port of Bellingham is the associate development organization for Whatcom County. And as such, we have quarterly reporting requirements to the Washington State Department of Commerce. So the Economic Development Division is responsible for completing and performing a quarterly review of business retention and expansion, recruitment, and other forms of business assistance. And the Accounting Division does the quarterly financials to Commerce. We also have Team Whatcom, which is a consortium of economic development service providers who work within Whatcom County. And since May 2022, we've been using those monthly meetings to review progress on the SEDS topically. And then finally, we also provide regular updates to funders of the division at the port, which includes this commission, City of Bellingham, Whatcom County, and the Department of Commerce. So today's focus and the focus of this progress report is on our Team Whatcom review. So since the approval of the SEDS in April 22, we've been using these meetings and rather than focus on a specific goal, we opted to stay agile and focus on critical issues. So for example, you'll see that resiliency was covered in both May 2022 and 23. This is due to the desire to monitor recovery from COVID, as well as the border closure and the added ongoing impacts of the Nooksack River flood in November 21. We also covered housing twice. As you know, we're in a housing crisis, and that situation was exacerbated in the last 3 years. So hopefully we'll be able to continue this work with this team and keep working with partners to develop a similar 2024 review schedule. So the progress report itself, this is just to show you the format of the report and a couple examples. It'll have several components. It'll have a letter from Rob as the executive director of the port, a description of the evaluation framework in the SEDS document. Then we'll have specific pages for the port and for our partners' contributions. And you'll see some examples here to the left and the right. On the left is the port's, first draft page, and on the right is Bellingham Technical College's finalized and approved page. We will also have a section on key metrics for evaluation. We'll talk about next steps, some highlights of the report, some acknowledgements, and then contact information for the cities, county, and tribes. Now, I should mention that right now this report only includes the Port of Bellingham in discussion with our partners. The small cities are really strapped in terms of, capacity and staffing. So for now, this report just includes the port and the Team Whatcom group. And hopefully in the future, when some of those staffing shortages are addressed, we will incorporate all of the cities, the city of Bellingham and the county. So just a quick review of some of the key metrics in case this is something of interest to the commissioners. So these are really just some key metrics that we identify that we would review on an annual basis. And I do want to emphasize, even though we are going to review these numbers on an annual basis, I don't want to suggest that the port or even the port and all the cities in the county alone are responsible for determining these numbers, right? There's state factors, there's national factors, there's global factors that impact these numbers. But we, need to pay attention to them and try to, take a look at them regularly to assess, what the economic health looks like at any point in time. So for this report, we're going to look at the number of jobs created by sector. That's data from Employment Security Department, as is our data on income and wages, which is per capita personal income, as well as annual wages. We also have some housing data. Right now, this bulk of that is from OFM, the Office for Financial Management in Washington State. And we do have some data as well from some of the city planning departments. And we have some information as well on childcare. So what do these numbers look like as of today based on the most up-to-date data? So a lot of you have probably been reading the quarterly reports from ESD or Annalise Vance Sherman, so this will not be a surprise, but worth reviewing. So when the Whatcom County SEDS was written and approved, ESD reported that there were 91,000 non-farm jobs in Whatcom County in June 2021. So right in the middle of the pandemic. So that number remained below the high of 97,300 jobs in June 2019. So prior to the onset of COVID and the related closures. So as of November 2022, which is the most recently available data for these job counts at this time, Whatcom has finally returned to our pre-pandemic employment levels and have actually exceeded that high of June 2019 and are at 97,700 non-farm jobs. So similarly, unemployment has not only rebounded to pre-pandemic levels, but has hit historic lows over the past year plus, if not 2 years, and was only 3.1% in Whatcom County in June 23. So some may interpret this data as indicating that Whatcom County's economy and businesses have fully recovered from COVID, from the border impacts, and from the flood. But qualitative data and information that we're gathering through business retention and expansion activities, both conducted by the port and partners, indicate that many sectors are still experiencing pretty serious labor shortages. And this could certainly be due to, at least in part, the very low unemployment rate. Wages and income in Whatcom County are growing. That's great news. We hit in 2020, we had per capita income of $59,510, which is lower than the state average of $67,000 and change, but higher than the national average of $52,000 and change. Similarly, as for the annual wage, that was only $49,600 and change in 2019. That was below the state average of $69,000 at that time. And that's increased by about $4,000 to $53,000, but continues to be about $20,000 below the state average, which was $73,504 in 2020. But again, is still above the national average. So our wages and per capita income seem, kind of between being above the national averages, but below the state averages. So
Jennifer, can I ask a quick question on the math there?
sure.
So if per capita is total income divided by population, what's annual wage then? Because wouldn't that be higher? Wouldn't wage be higher than per capita?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in this case, this is because some of the income is not necessarily from wages, whereas the 53,000 is only income from wages.
Gotcha. Thank you. So investment income is not counted in the 53.
Exactly. And that would be the same, for example, this is basically just an extrapolation of the average hourly or daily rate as well. So as for housing, so I did want to mention, according to the Department of Commerce and the data that accompanied House Bill 1220, Whatcom County needs to build 34,377 units in the next 20 years to account for current demand and population growth. So the data we have here shows that we have increased our total units by 3,414, which was about a 3.37 increase since 2021. So that's pretty decent. But, despite this increase in units, a lot of the units remain unaffordable and unavailable. So prior to the pandemic in January 2020, the median sale price for a home was $375,000 in Whatcom County. By 2022, that price hit an all-time high of $635,000. And this is data from Redfin Market Insights. So, there's still a lot of issues in terms of access to those units. Childcare. Problem is still acute, demand is high, costs are high, labor is short, and slots are few. But we do have some good news, which is that 300 in a report out to the Whatcom County Business and Commerce Committee in August 2023, we were told by the Healthy Children's Fund managers that the funds would be used to create 300 slots by 2025. So, of course, there'll be more details and data in the report, but I thank you again for your time, commissioners. Thank you, Rob, and to all the port staff and partners that are making this report and work possible. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay.
I'm going to dive into that childcare for 300 slots in 2025, and we're raising 11 million a year. Why can't we get 300 more slots in 2023 at 11 million a year?
Yeah, so that was for the 4.5 million. So
Okay, so
Yeah.
4.5 million.
but still a lot of money. And I think that this is a great conversation to have, both in terms of how to deal with the childcare problem, and also what the county, the port, and the jurisdictions are really responsible for and capable of controlling, right? This problem is a massive and very expensive problem that kind of requires federal resources at this point to achieve the numbers that we need.
So you're telling me that 11 million a year isn't enough?
So far, it does not appear that it will be enough. It's possible we could have some demographic changes where more people are homeschooling, and we are seeing some of that as a result of COVID. If that continues, the number of slots that we need may decrease, but it's a very expensive issue and very complicated, as you know. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one regarding unemployment. You made the statement that unemployment was at an all-time low, which interests me because the windows with help wanted signs are at all-time high.
Yes.
So is this benefits running out, people moving out? Where are they coming up with these numbers? Because I find that they seem to, misreport the fact that people's benefits run out, so then the person isn't listed as an unemployed person any longer. They're just not there, I guess. So how did they
Yeah.
arrive at that number that we're at an all-time low for unemployment?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. So whenever we report the unemployment number, we need to keep in mind that people need to be actively looking for a job within the last 4 weeks. So if they haven't looked for a job within the last 4 weeks, they fall out of that count. And so if people haven't been applying for jobs, they fall into a discouraged worker category after that. And that I would say that group of worker, we might need to come up with different strategies to re-engage them, particularly for these jobs that we're seeing help wanted signs everywhere for.
Yeah, and I think we need to come up with a new plan to figure out who's actually unemployed and who's not, because the only way they seem to be able to figure it out is if they come in and get a check or they accept a check or whatever. So I never have been very comfortable with our unemployment numbers, so I was just wondering how they were coming up with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.
Do we have a ability to understand that discouraged worker population number?
That's a really good question. I think this is a group that's pretty hard for data scientists to access, right? There are people who aren't coming into work who no longer have reporting requirements to ESD because, once they don't have to, do their weekly sign in to get benefits, maybe ESD has no way to count them whatsoever. And I think that discouraged worker category is one that will be worth looking into, figuring out, how we can be flexible and agile to try to re-engage them. But I have not seen any sort of disaggregated data about them, and I haven't yet seen any super clear plans about that.
I'm kind of a discouraged worker. Do you have a demographic? Do we have an age group?
So I think that we do know that some people may be people who were in 2-income families before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, one person maybe left their job to deal with the childcare issue or whatever else. And maybe they've been able to make it work. So they haven't gone back to their job, or maybe their childcare is no longer available, for example. So I have a feeling that a lot of people who fall into this category are people who are in young families. And then the other thing is that given how Northwest Washington, really all of the Swiss counties have an aging population, we're seeing just massive amounts of people retiring and no one being available to sort of fill all of that.
Okay. I saw for things like you had this third goal about labor strategies and training and apprenticeships. Do you capture things like the new program Working Waterfront Coalition has stood up for our marine trades apprenticeship program into some of that reporting?
It is. So it's captured both by the Working Waterfront Coalition. So they have a whole page of contributions to the SEDS and their deliverables for the SEDS. And we also included that on the port side too for supporting that.
Great. Well, that's great. I found this presentation to be quite valuable. I think the SEDS is one of those, can be a abstract feeling document that doesn't always feel like it touches on daily life, but you've helped to make it quite, I don't know, accountable. And I like to see that we are closely tracking the goals with measurable outcomes. And I hope we get regular updates like this.
Awesome. I would be happy to do them. And I think that this is a really important part of the SEDS process, is to have someone who is kind of following the partners around, asking for report outs so that we can track the progress and, show that to the community, show that to our businesses, and, really make this document worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, just the information on income discrepancy around the state and between here and some of the employment numbers are really useful. Those are not always at my fingertips, but I like to be able to reference them.
Well, anytime, I'm happy to help you find the most recent. Just let me know.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks, Jennifer. Well done.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, our second presentation is budget status report and Q3 update, and we have CFO Tamara Sobczak.
Great, thank you. Tamara Sobczak, CFO, Port of Bellingham. Thank you. So I've got the quarterly updates, financial updates, budget update for 2024, including operating divisions or operating by division, large capital projects, and then Rob and I met with each of you one-on-one about the 5-year capital plan, and I have answers to your questions from that as well. So we're going to be here a minute. Settle in. So we'll start with the. Oh. Oh, would you like a joke? What is the difference between the swine flu and the bird flu? The swine flu requires ointment, and the bird flu requires tweetment. So stormwater. So we'll start with stormwater and just forget that joke. So both permits are in compliance with training and record keeping. The Q3 samples represent first fall flush sampling event, just for your information. The airport sample results were within permit limits, and we are waiting for one lab result on that. And then at the shipping terminal, the samples were collected during cargo operations. There were 19 exceedances. Level 3 corrective action was triggered, and those responses will be completed by the deadline of September of 2024. Moving to the safety report, we've had 3 accidents this year. Only 3 days of time loss for all 3 of those. Public records request, we've had 96 year to date, and that has taken 284 staff hours to respond to those requests. Currently, we have 5 major requests open, and all others are small or have been closed. So moving on to the financials, this is the first 9 months of the year. We went from net assets of $276 million to $291 million in 9 months, meaning we increased assets and decreased liabilities. And then our current investments, we have we have 16 million in federal securities, earning 3.81 average interest on those. And then the balance of our invested cash is in the LGIP, earning 5.38 net interest at the end of September. So moving into the financial portion, each category has 2 slides. So this first slide is 2023 budget versus 2023 actuals for the first 9 months. So revenues on the left, budget versus, or sorry, year-to-date actual versus budget. So port-wide, we've exceeded our planned revenues. And then port-wide, we have not spent our planned expenses. So good news on both sides. Overall, about 2.6 million better than we had planned. And then the second slide that you'll see this theme throughout the presentation is we're comparing 2023 budget with 2024 budget, and this is operating. So we had budgeted $30 million in revenue in 2023. We're expecting $3 million additional in 2024. And then also the flip side of that, we're expecting to spend $4.5 million more in expenses in next year than this year. All right, so then we'll dive into each division. This is, again, the first 9 months slide. So more
Hey, Tamara,
activity.
can I stop you for just a second and go back?
Yes.
So the 27,880 that is in the budget, is that just things we've already approved, but we expect to have additional layers that will come up to the 32?
Yes, so there's no added programs. It's just cost increase for those same programs. Was that your question?
Yeah, the question is the 27, what's it comprise?
Oh, those are operating expenses. So
Those are just
staffing.
standard operating expenses. That's what we expect to see, but we know that we'll be adding more expenses to that, right?
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
But the budget is only through the 3 quarters as well, though. The budget isn't for the whole year.
No, that's 2023 budget.
32 million for the whole year?
That's the 32 million is 24 budget.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so the airports, we budgeted for the first 9 months 4.3 million in revenues, and we've hit 5.3. I think we just budgeted pretty conservatively, and then you'll see that in the next slide. And then expenses were still a little bit under budget. So good news here at the airport.
Tamara, I know we're getting close to having employment back to where we were pre-pandemic at the airport. I don't think we're quite there, but we're getting close.
Right.
Do you know how this revenue compares for pre-pandemic?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look at that. I can tell you
back to me on that.
I can definitely get back to you on that, but I can tell you that we're projecting, let me just go to this next slide. So we're budgeting revenues for 2024 at 7.3 million, and we're expecting that number for 2023. So really expecting to come up way better than budget.
Okay.
And then we are expecting expenses to go from 6.4 million to 7.4 million. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record through this presentation, but it's really just overall costs. It's staffing, it's contracted services, it's parking, it's janitorial, it's utilities. Everything is increasing. So that's why that second bank of columns are gonna kind of look this way for the budget.
Can you just go on that really quick? Because we put Kip under some pressure here. You'll note that we're in the red here, 7.385 in revenues and 7.433. Kip has assured me that that number can change.
Let me do you a favor here, Kip. All right, so then moving over to the marinas, we continue to enjoy high occupancy at both of our marinas. And so revenues are coming in just over what we budgeted, and then expenses, staff's doing a great job of watching those costs. And so they've come in a little bit lower than budget. And then a similar situation here, consistent with 2023 revenues, just expect to continue to maintain high occupancy there. And then costs continue to rise across the board. And the cruise terminal, this one, it's so predictable. Is if we don't add service or remove service, it's just going to look this way. So this is great. Predictable revenues and expenses through 2023 so far. And then we're planning for the same for next year, right about the same level. The shipping terminal revenue has come in less than expected. We budgeted pretty optimistically, and we just haven't seen as much as we thought we would. But we've also had expenses come in a little bit lower. Next year, we're going to budget the same. And it's not because we're going to budget optimistically again, but our rates are planning to increase. So that's where that increase is going to go, not just the activity. And these expenses include a much higher security presence as well. So those are high expenses.
So this might be for Mr. Warder, but this obviously assumes ABC, assumes continued McManus operations. Does it include any new business? Okay, thank you.
So looking over at the real estate department, year-to-date is a little higher than budget and expenses right at budget. Same story as marinas. High occupancy keeps revenues and expenses predictable as long as those occupancies stay steady. We'll continue to see this. And their budget kind of looks the same year over year unless we get some new revenue sources or something online. But it's contractual increases and then trying to hold our expenses as steady as we possibly can. And then overhead, these are just, your planning, admin, and those are coming in as budgeted as well. So there's no utilities or contracted services for these divisions. So we won't see those spikes. Except next year, every single program. So there are quite a few programs. So this one has planning, finance, IT, security, HR, and every one of them just has a little bit higher of costs associated with them. We have software costs, we have staffing, we have lobbyists. So that's why it looks like a big increase, but it's just a lot of little increases. And then looking at the waterfront district, revenues and expenses really coming in very, very close throughout the year, year over year. And then next year's budget, we're expecting a little bit increase in revenue, and then the major increase in the 2024 budget at the waterfront is really the development costs like legal review and things like that. And then all other public, this is, economic development, all of our community outreach items. The revenue came in a little higher only because we had a one-time FTZ application fee, and that's just a one-time. We won't see that every single year. And then expenses coming in a little under budget. Planning for next year, you can see those revenues. That's really meetings and events, renting out our event spaces. And then that's quite a bit jump in the expenses for budget. And this one includes the 1.1 million LUMI agreement, not finalized, but we are planning for that. And that's where this lives in there. Okay, so before I move on, there was one, do you have any questions about what I've said so far? Okay, good. I did want to mention, Commissioner Bell did ask at our one-on-one meetings about cost of security for 2024. So he asked me to put together kind of a comprehensive list of just 2024, our added security items. I just want to go over those. I didn't prepare a slide, but I'll just tell you what they are. So we're proposing to add 4 additional guards, and that's about $430,000 for salaries and benefits. We're proposing security cameras at 6 different locations, several cameras at each location, obviously, and those cameras are coming in at about $650,000. We're going to install a card lock access control system on the gas and diesel bulk fuel at maintenance, $14,000. We have some security improvements to this building for $100,000. And then we're proposing to add an exterior door and window addition to at the cruise terminal where meetings and events office is, just for like an exit. And that's $135,000. So all told, an additional $1.3 million for security just for next year.
And those extra security guards, those are going to be full-time then? that'll be in perpetuity. So we'll have that extra $400,000 to $500,000 in labor for extra security.
Correct, going from 6 guards to 10.
But $1.3 million for this year and, okay.
Yep, correct.
Are we still contracting with the third party for the airport? Just for the airport?
No, we're doing a lot of the real estate, third party, the waterfront, BBWAS, the Portal Village is all third party right now. Really, the marinas is the only thing we've taken in-house.
Have we decreased the third party expense?
Absolutely, yeah. They're out of the marinas altogether.
So we've been able to shift some of the costs there,
Yep.
but
Great. So talking about the 2024 budget, I obviously always have to bring this up. So in the budget, we've proposed a 1% tax levy increase. I'm asking, not telling. So I'm assuming a 1% increase. I'm assuming we will take tax on new construction. And assuming, and it's not an assumption anymore, but assessed values continue to increase. I received the preliminary numbers from the assessor's office, and property values looks like they're increasing by another 16% next year. Yeah, and then do the math, and that rate will decrease. So if we take the 1% and tax on new construction, that'll give us $8.1 million for next year at a rate of 13.32 cents per thousand value. And so I do need an answer on this either tonight or next meeting is fine too, if you want to think about it and chew on it. But I will need to know what to ask the county for.
So if I'm reading this correctly, the average homeowner, providing their assessment stays the same, their property tax to the port will go down even if we take the 1% increase.
Well, if their assessed value goes up,
Yeah,
their
but-
rate goes down, so they're paying the same.
But if their assessed value stays the same, the rate is going down,
the
then
amount would go
they'll
down.
pay less.
Yes,
Yeah. So the average homeowner, if we reassess 1/3, I think it's 1/3 of the homes we reassess value each year, it's either 25% or 33%, but the rest of those homes will pay less to the port.
But those ones that do see the rate increase, which everybody's going to see eventually.
Well, it's not a rate increase because our rate is going to go from 0.1502 down to 0.1332, but their assessed value of their home will go up. So if they had a $500,000 home this year, maybe it's a $575,000 home next year. So they'll be paying a tax on an extra $75,000 in value.
Yeah, that's the rate increase I was.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get that countywide.
That's right.
Eventually.
I think it's every
Yeah.
4 years, everyone's all reassessed.
Yeah, which just reminds me of Jennifer's figure of assessed value going up by about $300,000.
That was incredible.
Or not assessed value, but sale value, just within a few years. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
We have to mull this over every year, and it's never something that we take lightly. It's clear we have expenses are increased across the board. There's just no way around it. And so it's a clear trend. And I can see the rationale here, given our expenses and what this is meaning for our budget.
Any other comments on this one?
So if I'm reading this correctly, it'll be a $200,000 increase countywide total, right?
Yes.
And we've got, what, 280,000 people in the county? So it's less than $1 a person? Okay. I thought I'd put a little more into perspective. You can't even buy a cigarette for that, right? I don't know, I don't smoke anymore, but I hear they're over $1 a piece.
Hey, Bobby, can you speak into the mic?
We're just debating the cost of cigarettes. You didn't miss much.
No, what I said, Ken, was I want to make sure I was looking at this right. We're increasing the tax on the folks in Whatcom County by countywide $200,000, and we've got 280,000 plus people in the county, so it's less than $1 a person. And I just want to make sure I understood that correctly, and Tamara said yes, so. I mean, I think we need to take an official vote on that, correct? So we need to have a motion.
No, when you
a
when you
heads up?
approve the budget.
Okay.
So I'll let you know what's in the budget, and then you approve the budget, and that's where it,
Okay.
yeah.
So what do you need from us today?
I just need, well, either today or at next meeting is fine. I just need to know what to put in the budget. And I'm happy to provide some extra data next meeting, different ways of looking
I think
at
what
it.
she's asking for, if you're not okay with the 1%, speak now. Otherwise, we're going to put the 1% in there.
That's why she wanted a head nod.
Okay,
I
Like-
love plain English.
I nodded.
yes or no?
I'm okay with this. I've been fighting raising taxes ever since I became a commissioner, but, the assess is really going down, not up, so to speak. It depends on how you look at the numbers. But $1 per person countywide for what we're trying to do here at the port at this point in time, I think is $1, so less than $1 is well spent. And hopefully that less than $1 well spent is going to come back and help a lot of people in the county from what we do here at the port. So, I'm okay with it this year.
Thank you. Commissioner Bell, do you have any comments you need me to hear on this one?
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so then we went through all the capital projects together, but I just wanted to list out the 10 largest ones for 2024, and we're prepared for any discussion that you'd like to have on those as well. So the Blaine MDOC extension is $2.3 million in 2024. Inner Harbor upgrades, design and permit only, $1.7 million. And then we've got additional money in the out years. So between 2025 and 2027, an additional $4.7 million total for those design and permit efforts. And then designing the rehab runway at the airport is $1.8 million total, and the FAA is going to chip in 90% for that. So the port's take is $180,000. And then same story with the ARF truck, $1.5 million, 90% FAA grant funded. And then we have $1 million set aside to plan, design, and permit the waterfront stormwater. And then we're planning or proposing to add 4 to 6 more containers at the container village and a large deck for $990,000. Digester tanks abatement for $700,000. Demo warehouse 9, this was actually in the 2023 budget. We scrapped it and put it in 2024, so I've just listed it again. And then solar for the BLI commercial terminal rooftop for $575,000. And then the Marine Drive Industrial Park office building, design and engineer to turn that into an industrial building.
So Rob, maybe, or you can tell me the 990 for 4 to 6 containers, what does that entail? And are we going to recoup that in lease fees?
So when we build a container, and keep in mind it's a mixed down there, a mixed bag. We've got some people own their own containers, and we own some of the containers. On the containers we own, which would be these in that 990, we get 6% of our cost into the container, so it'd be 6% of 990 plus 3% of the vendor's revenues. So, rough math, it probably ends up being somewhere, depending on how much revenue they do, 7 to 9% ROI on that. We haven't designed this section yet. Next year, this winter, we've already in the budget been approved to add the Zeke's container, the bin 13, and then the roving retail container. That will all go in this winter, regardless of this 990. If you approve the 990, what we'll start doing is, we're 2 days away from Harcourt defaulting, so I think I'm okay saying that I don't think they're going to be there next year. And we would start to move the container village that direction, and those 4 to 6 containers would be added kind of over where the tent was and where the food trucks were this summer. And those are
more towards port ownership of those containers and less towards owner occupy leased land.
We would prefer to the port own the containers. It's easier. It gets a consistency in there that we like and gives us a little more control over the village. Yeah, please.
So the tenant-owned containers are Colshan's, Sunnyland, Rain or Shine, and the small, just 10 Portal Putt. I said the filling station. Yep. Yep.
Do we have a sense for how revenue positive the operations are? I mean, we've heard some glowing reports about how much beer was sold during the tune-up, and I can surmise that Colshan's revenues are pretty positive there. How about our other partners?
They're making money.
Varies.
I think the ones I've talked to were making money. The ones I was most worried about, I talked to, and they made money this summer. So I don't know how the bike shop did, but I can tell you the rest of the food containers did pretty good.
I have
Oh, they might. So it's a mixed bag, I guess.
mixed bag. Okay. Well, always is. I have continued to hear positive reviews and just a lot of thanks from artist community who are doing the pop-ups. That is, I don't know how financially successful it is, but the people who have been in there have really appreciated the opportunity, and it's been really well received.
Well, I do appreciate the question on this. I think there's a lot of rumors as to what we're charging people down there. Someone told me yesterday that Trackside or Colshan was paying $50 a month in rent. And that's certainly not the case. Would we like to get more rent out of them? Sure, but it's not $50. It's 3% of their revenue, and they're selling a lot of beer.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question about the digester tank abatement. What was it, 700,000 for?
Yeah, so the digesters are the 6 rocket ships. The paint that is on them is flaking off, and it's got lead in it. So the abatement is a big process. We got to totally tent them and blast that paint off to remove it. That's why it's an expensive endeavor. I'm hopeful to come in less than this, but you can imagine tenting them is going to be a big ordeal. Scaffolding and tent.
So that doesn't doing anything to them after that stuff's removed?
No, it just removes the bad paint. And I believe it does some cross bracing for, structural seismic correct stuff.
Okay.
Do they get painted after that, or what happens?
Brian Gowan, Environmental Planning Director. Right now, we're just planning on leaving them, not painting. We could do that in a later date, but this is really just to remove the paint. It'd look a lot like the acid ball. You know, it'll kind of get that rusty patina on it, and it's thick enough. There's no structural concerns about it. Those are really massive steel structures, so it'll look like the acid ball for now, and then we can choose to do something later if we want to. Yeah.
Another question I had was, I think it was MDOC. It was on the previous page. I keep looking at that 2.3 and thinking about floats, and I'm like, whoa.
Me too.
I mean, can build a lot for 2.3.
Tiffany DeSimone, Director of Maritime. Thanks for the question on that. We did hear your questions earlier and are planning on that coming in at a lower number by using perhaps different materials and a different internal opportunity to build some floats. So,
And that just replaces the boathouse docks, correct?
correct. We gain one additional slip.
Part of the challenge there is the utilities are all above your head. I mean, so they're going through the boathouse, and typically on something like this, we float them underneath the float. We hang them underneath the float. So that has part of the conversion, part of driving up the cost. Because we have to get utilities out to the boathouse too.
You know, I see a lot of the marinas now, the stuff's not under the docks, not even in water. It's in the middle of the float. So is that something we're considering?
It is. That's we've been kind of following the Friday Harbor model, and that's something that they're looking at. The other complication with this project is we're reconnecting to Boathouse 2 and those older floats out there. So
Right. All right, thank you. And I just cough when I see that, sorry.
Yeah, it's a big
Make the cough
number
go.
that is just to get to the other boathouse.
Well, this builds floats too. So,
builds
because when you
floats.
move the boathouse, the floats, you have no floats there for boats to moor into. So this replaces those floats and allows us to put moorage back in.
So it replaces existing float, moorage, and adds one additional. That's what I'm hearing.
Do we have to reposition pilings in this? Do we have to reposition any pilings? We do, okay. Yeah. There's why we should have our own pile driver. That's all I have, thank you.
No additional questions on these projects? Okay, great. So then just as a visual for 2024, many of our capital projects are in the marinas, real estate, and waterfront. That's our focus for next year. One thing you didn't notice, or you may not have thought about, but I did not propose any debt for 2024. We do have some debt proposed in 2025, 2026, and 2028, instead of a big chunk, just dividing it up, because we have some big projects going out there, and we just can't self-fund it.
We'll get better rates?
Maybe.
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 Maybe that money tree will start producing.
The other thing I do want to be transparent about is, so staff has worked really hard and we have a balanced 2024 budget, but 2025 is not quite there. And then I think it's 2027 is not quite there. So we still have some more work to do. So the draft budget will look a little bit different than the final. Yeah. And then, okay, I wanted to answer your questions from our one-on-ones.
See if I could only remember.
We might change them.
I took notes. I know what you asked.
Not that I'm going to gloat, but she did mine first. Just saying.
Okay. So some of them just kind of fell off. It's not. Okay. So there was a question about the sand shed at the airport for $150,000 that just wanted more details. So this property is rentable, but it has not been maintained in the past. And with these upgrades to the electric service and watertight siding, it'll produce a modest income that will pay for the upgrades. So we'll make it leasable. MDOC, you answered those. There was a question. I'm sorry, did you?
What was the question?
Where's the sand gonna go if we're taking it out of that building? Or we're not removing it?
Elliot? I don't think is there sand in the building now? Can you come to the microphone? We call it the sand building, but I'm not sure it has anything in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Elliot Smith, Director of Real Estate. The shed is currently empty, and as it's close to the end runway, it's suitable for some low use with the income coming in, then going to the airport budget.
So it didn't have sand stored in it?
Not any time in the recent past.
All right, so it's somewhere else now. All right.
We just keep these historic names. There was a question about.
Surprisingly, the alcohol plant doesn't have any alcohol in it either.
Not yet.
But it could have.
Give us time.
We'll figure it out.
Now you've just given us
It's low, but I know we can get there.
Okay, we did have updating the common area restrooms in the Bayview Center in the budget, but we moved that to unfunded. We don't think they're necessary right now, especially given our budget. I'm not going to call it a crisis, but crisis. And then the Bellwether Building HVAC replacement option analysis for $112,000. There was a question about, can this be done in-house? And this needs a mechanical engineer, so we do not have the expertise in-house to do that. Blaine maintenance dredging to increase water depth along west and southwest corners of the pier. Are disposal costs included? The answer is yes. And that total project is $1.5 million. So bear with me, you guys asked a lot of questions. Let's see. The BC Tier Pier piling project in 2025 for $1.8 million. More details were asked for. There's a lot. Steel piling repairs, repairs to mooring dolphin support, steel support repairs, removal of corrosion, and application of protective coatings on the stern wing walls. I don't know what that means, but I'm hoping you do. And I know Dave does. Waterfront stormwater management master plan design and permitting. Can this be done in-house? No, it's not possible. It's a consulting team. And this is the design and permitting for disconnection and new stormwater system for everything currently connected to the ASB. So it's a big endeavor. Let's see.
Brian, can you just remind me, is there a date specific that we are looking for cutoff?
We're looking at starting in 2026, but that one of the things we're working on a consultant on is there's a way that we can use that in the interim. That's what we're just currently planning for. Is that with the start of construction, there may be ways to keep that active for a while because we're going to need to do water management as part of that whole cleanup. So that's one of the things they're looking at as and that may spread out over a longer period of time.
Okay, just a couple more. Some of these questions have already been answered. Lower Squalicum Creek flood and habitat improvements for $100,000. The question was, what is this project? So this is actually to evaluate the removal and replacement of 3 bridges, including Roeder Avenue Bridge. City of Bellingham is project lead and recently got a $1.84 million grant to complete this work. The Port and City are each contributing $100,000 as the local match for the grant, so it's not really our project. And then one other question, I don't know if this came from staff or one of you, but there was a 2023 project approved last year for a hand launch ramp at Zwanich Point Park, and that's over $200,000. And so wondering if that's still something that's needed or reasonable. The project has not moved forward.
So this is where the day dock currently is at the end of Zwanich Park. I think with what we're trying to do in Fairhaven, with putting a new hand launch system there, Waypoint Park is now hand launch. I think this one might be redundant. It was pushed by a local boater, that part of a boat club. So I think since we're desperately looking for money in this budget, this would be one I'd look to postpone.
Is this for paddle boards? Is that?
Canoes, paddle boards, yeah, kayaks.
Yeah. I'm just not as familiar. I don't see as many of those crafts launch from that location. I see them launch, with our improvements on Squalicum. I see a lot of people launch over at Waypoint.
Yeah.
That was part of where I was going with the question.
Well, I think it was a sailing club member that wants to hand launch there. It's a full ramp, but it's a hand launch ramp. So, our fear is the next request is going to be, okay, we want to drive them in, and then they're driving across the Zwanich Park and breaking sprinkler heads, and it's not, you got pedestrians and rollerbladers, and it's not a drive-to point. So my fear is this is first step in something bigger, and I think you could head this off by pointing them to other hand launch areas.
I would agree.
Yeah, I've never heard this request before, so it's just new to me.
He's been, I forgot the guy's name, but he's been, yeah, I think that's him, yeah. Alex Hildreth is the lead on it, yeah.
Can he launch from one side of the boat launch float there?
Yep, they can definitely launch from the boat launch. We see kayaks go out and stand-up paddleboards go out from the boat launch here in Squalicum all the time. You can launch from that day dock. I've launched a paddleboard from that day dock before. It's like launching from a float. It's not ideal, but it can be done. But he's got these sailboats that are in little trailers that he wants to launch, and I think he needs something more like a ramp. But he could certainly launch. They launch currently from Squalicum Boat Launch.
Launch from in Zwanich Park?
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work.
How are they going to get the boats to the launch spot?
They say they're going to walk them down. That's what I say. My fear is the next request is to be able to drive them down because someone doesn't want to walk them down, or they need some sort of vehicle to drive them in.
Maybe at this point we should put it to the next years so we can gather enough information so we understand it better.
Insight on what they're thinking.
I'd love to put it on the unfunded, grab it back. We can always put it back in next year if we wanted to. That gets us $250,000 back.
I like the idea of unfunded. Quite frankly, I know that we've got a ton of boat hand launches, and we just spent a lot of money on a bunch of beaches. Forgive me, I'm COVID positive, so I've got some brain malfunctions, but I think we've got a lot of boat launches that we've put a lot of money into. I'd put this on unfunded.
Yeah, we're also doing a significant upgrade planned in Fairhaven at
Big upgrade at Fairhaven. That's going to be a nice facility for sure.
really, it kind of seems like we have to focus on where the best access points are for hand launch and really make them as great as possible. And I think we've done that at places like Squalicum. We've made that a wonderful facility. And we're going to do that in Fairhaven at the CBC.
And to your point, Rod, they're going to be bringing that stuff in cars, and the launch is not meant for that.
But I'll wait to hear how I'm wrong on this.
I guess we'll have a visitor at our next meeting is my guess, but for now, we'll put it on the unfunded. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. So do you have any more questions that I didn't answer that you remember? These were all my notes.
Well, yeah, no, I do have another question that I didn't get, after I got this, I went through and looking at. So on our Webb House in Blaine, Webb House number 2, we've pushed our upgrading the lighting and the power off until 2027. That works well to push it off on paper, but it doesn't work well to push it off for the guys that are trying to work in there and do things. I'm wondering if there's any way we can, and the other one we pushed out to was, how much was that? 289 on Webb House 3, and,
You just gave us back 250, so.
okay, and then we got, it's 268 on Webb House 2.
But I want to remind you that we don't have a balanced budget for 2025.
268.
Is there some other priority that we can swap it with?
Well, now, there is, I spoke with Andy a little bit, and I don't think, Andy's not here, no. He said he was pretty sure they didn't use all the money on the sawtooth power and lighting. He thought there was 100,000 or a little more left there.
So if that project's been closed, it's already been accounted for that money back into the bank.
I don't know if it's been closed or not.
I'll have to look.
So it just kind of disappeared then?
Well, it goes back into.
To the general fund? That's okay,
That's a fine
it's
word to
fine.
use. Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, it's easy to push it out for us, but it's not so easy for the guys that are down there working in light where you can't hardly see what you're doing, because we are pretty antiquated with our light, even if we could just get to the lights and maybe not the power upgrade, so we got some LED lights or something.
So there's not sufficient lighting to work inside the buildings?
There's one light way up in the top, and the guys will plug in lights, and try and put them around, and then we got a fire hazard because we got chain lights up. So if there's that would be when I look through things, my
So
only request is
you'd like us to see if there's a way to do something with the lighting.
move that forward to 24 to do the lighting.
Okay, well, we'll look at it.
What's that?
We'll look at it.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So next steps. So on Monday, I expect to put the draft budget on our website for the public to review. I'll get the commissioners a new version of the capital budget and the operating budgets to look at before that. And then November 7th, our next meeting, we'll have a public hearing. And I'll see if there's more questions, and then I'll present any changes that I've made between now and then so that you're aware of what we're asking. And then the second meeting in November, we'll ask for you to approve the budget after the final public hearing. So is there anything additional you'd like to see next meeting that I did not address today? And I have one in my pocket. Thank you, Holly. But you'll have to wait for that one.
I have nothing. I mean, there's lots of things I'd like to see, we all would, but the reality of it is we don't have the funds to do it, so we have to do what we think is the most important on the list, to try to keep things rolling. But no, I have nothing for,
Okay.
I made my request.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Just so it's not all doom and gloom, we do think there's some upside in the airport. We believe that can get to the black, and there's some additional revenue to be had there as we add routes. And then, as we all know, the shipping terminal is a huge opportunity, and we're looking really close to getting our permit. I think we'll have our permit in the next day or two, and then we'll get our dredging done in this fish window, and we're pretty confident that we'll see some additional ship traffic in the 2024 year. So that's got the potential to be an extra $5-6 million of revenue, not next year, but over the next, say, 5 years.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
I was. Light bulbs. Oh, and I don't have a web locker up there, so it's not a conflict of interest.
All right, Thank you, Tamara. That brings us to our one and only action item.
Sure. A motion authorizing the executive director to execute a consent decree and agree order for the cleanup actions at the I&J waterway site.
Ooh, the pressure's on, Ben.
I know, those are two tough acts to follow. Yeah, so good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Ben Howard, Environmental Project Manager. Today I'm presenting the action item for authorization to execute a consent decree and agreed order for cleanup actions at the I&J waterway site. As shown in the opening slide, the site's located within Bellingham Bay waterfront between Bellwether and the Central Waterfront Peninsula. This graphic illustrates the cleanup action plan for the site. The cleanup action plan focuses on two separate sediment cleanup units, and they're SCU-1 and SCU-2, so we got pretty creative with the naming. SCU-1 is shown in the yellow shading, and this includes the area of dredging and bulkhead and dock replacement. The project will dredge approximately 18,000 cubic yards of sediment. SCU-2 is shown in the other shading colors. The purple and blue shading shows the areas of monitored natural recovery, which is approximately 1.1 acres. The blue shading shows the area of enhanced natural recovery. This is where a thin layer of material is placed to accelerate the natural recovery process. And the green shading shows the areas of capping to isolate sediment at the head of the waterway, which is approximately 0.7 acres. So the consent decree is for implementation of the final remedial design and construction for Sediment Cleanup Unit 1. The port has coordinated with Ecology, Bornstein Seafood, and the Attorney General's office to negotiate the consent decree. And the purpose is to identify the scope of work for the cleanup and includes a settlement agreement with Ecology. So the consent decree includes a settlement. And the scope of work includes developing the final remedial plan or design and implementing the cleanup construction and developing a completion report. And then the consent decree is entered into Whatcom County Superior Court. And Ecology did issue the consent decree for public review and comment during September 2023, and no public comments were received. And the agreed order is for initiating the remedial design for Sediment Cleanup Unit 2. So this is just for the remedial design. And the port has coordinated with Ecology and the Attorney General's office to negotiate the agreed order. And the scope of work includes remedial engineering and design of the sediment cleanup in SCU-2. And this includes a design investigation and development of an engineering design report and plans and specifications. And again, the agreed order was issued for public comment as well, and no public comments were received. So the cleanup next steps are to finalize these legal documents for each of the sediment cleanup units. And then for Sediment Cleanup Unit 1, we'll finalize the 100% plans and specs for preparation for bid advertisement. And construction of the cleanup project is planned for the 2024-2025 in-water work window, so which is next year. And for Sediment Cleanup Unit 2, we'll implement the design investigation in 2024 and utilize that information to develop the remedial engineering and design. So thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Ben. Any questions or comments?
On your slide back there with the colors, the original one you showed us, the little SCU box up there, is that just a little area by itself that's going to be cleaned up?
Oh, no, sorry, that's supposed to highlight an area, a label. Yeah.
Okay, because I was looking at going, how's that going to work? Okay, that answered my question. Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments, Commissioner Bell?
No, thanks.
Okay. All right, well, we've seen these plans several times before through its long and arduous process that it took to get here. It's taken quite a while, and I'm glad to see it's finally moving into this stage. So thanks, and I don't have any further.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, motion authorizing the executive director to execute a consent decree and agreed order for the cleanup actions at the I&J waterway site.
All right, Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0. All right, thank you very much, Ben. That concludes our regularly scheduled business. We'll open it up for public comment again. Anyone in the room? Seeing none. Anyone online? Also seeing none. We'll move into other business. Commissioner Bell? Any items from your COVID fog?
No, but I did want to relay just one of the downsides of the Southwest experience. I did go to Denver, which is where I got this bug. And coming out of Denver, I had to go through Vegas, and we had an hour delay coming out of Vegas for something, and then we got halfway from Vegas to Bellingham, and the plane had a mechanical. Because Southwest doesn't have the ability to repair here in Bellingham, they flew us back to Vegas just to fly us out here again. It's just a difficult sell. A lot of people I knew on that plane that did not have a good experience. Rob, I don't know why I'm telling you that. I'm just a little disappointed in the service.
Well, no, I appreciate you sharing that. As we add routes with Southwest, I'm confident we can get them to have a mechanical presence here like Allegiant does. Alaska has a good reason not to because SeaTac is so close by, they can drive their mechanics up. But for both Southwest and Allegiant, it seems like they have to have some on the ground here. But that won't happen until they get more routes.
COVID sneeze, sorry. That's all I got.
Okay. Commissioner Briscoe?
Okay, I got a few things here. First thing I'd like to do is commend Commissioner Shepard and Gina Stark on their representation of the port at Seafeast in the question and answer period that went on the main stage. You represented the port well, and thank you for that. I was a little disappointed that Seafeast neglected to have any commercial fishing industry representation in the Seafeast this year. Nothing. There was no anything on the marine dock for the boats. There was no tours of boats. There was no nothing. It's like we didn't exist. However, on Saturday afternoon, I did give one boat tour to Kip and his lovely wife, Lisa. I took them down and showed them the boat. I explained how things work on the other boats, the drum seiners and the block seiners. And then on Sunday, I decided I went in and I pulled the net off of the boat at the dock, and I put another net on and answered more questions and had a lot of people taking pictures. So it kind of rubs me the wrong way that we weren't included in Seafeast, which is really what it's all about. So I hope that in the future, I know we've put a person on the board, and I hope in the future that we aren't forgotten again, because we really are what it's all about.
Yeah, so we have a board meeting on Thursday, and I'll be sure to bring that up, Commissioner. Thank you for the feedback.
Other than that, I'll give you some more. Other than that, I liked the layout. I thought it was great. I thought things were done well. I think, people had a good time. I would like to see it move back into September. I was asked by several vendors, because I spent the whole day there Saturday till it closed. I was asked by several vendors, how come we're doing this in October? We got really lucky with the weather, really, really lucky. But the layout was great. I think it was well put together, other than we forgot the fishing industry, and maybe we can move it back. I really don't kind of care about the hotel rate things, was the answer I got before on that. Anyways, it was well put together. I will say that. I think it was very, very well put together. And that's all I have about that. So I received an email, and it was questioning our use of the log pond area at our shipping terminal. And apparently there's a thought process in our community that we're not supposed to have industry there, that we made some kind of deal with the city in the overall planning that that wasn't to be used for an industry. Maybe Brian, could you elaborate on our situation there and clarify it so it comes officially from staff where we're at?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, that question's come up a couple times, and yeah, we continually need to remind folks that the waterfront district, went through a sub-area plan with the city. We do have agreements with the city of Bellingham that the port and the city council both approved, but it does establish zoning, and the log pond area is zoned as industrial/mixed use, so it's an industrial mixed use. And then the downtown waterfront, where we see where the board mill is and the container village, that's commercial mixed use. So the types of uses that were anticipated in the log pond do include. And it explicitly calls out supporting the Bellingham shipping terminal, light industrial manufacturing, a variety of different types of uses. And the current uses that we have there are exactly what we had envisioned that in what was adopted. So it really does. It is designed to support the shipping terminal.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Like where the board mill building is going to go, we have a buffer zone between the log pond, and that waterfront district of lighter use industrial stuff. So we're on a step type basis to get to the heavier use.
That's right. Yeah, we're planning right now. Transition zone right there. It's not a different type of zoning. Not to confuse the words there, but it's a transition properties that will kind of be a buffer between the downtown waterfront and the industrial mixed use in the shipping terminal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the thought that thank you, Brian. Yep. So the thought that we're going to move our industrial stuff right up to the edge of the board mill building when it's built it's never been our plan. It's been there's a buffer zone that we, so to speak, that we figured on in the whole planning of everything we're doing down there. So just wanted to get that clarified. The other thing that kind of came to light, and Rob and I had a meeting conversation, is some folks think there's a need for better access to the port commission meetings in our information that we discuss. And I kind of think that, in my opinion, now this is my opinion, that the members of our community want to know what's going on. It's very easy to find out. We have a very good website. We're on YouTube. Now, we might not be on channel 9 or 10 or whatever it is, like the city, but they're also not on YouTube as far as I know. Are they?
They're channel 10 broadcast simultaneously on YouTube.
Okay. But I guess my point is, if you're interested in what we're doing, change the channel and go to YouTube. We're broadcasting live all over the world. You can watch it from Italy if you're there on a vacation. You can still know what we're doing. There's some people that want to put the blame on the port for what they don't know, and I don't think that's a very good deal. Get off your duff, change the channel, and you can learn what's going on here at the Report Commission, or you can go to our website at any time and find out what's going on here, as well as YouTube anytime and find out what's going on. You're not going to miss anything, but you have to make the effort. And I think that's all I have.
Okay. I just have a couple things I did want to give it some congratulations on Seafeast. I know it's a big project for everybody. I too noticed and heard some discomfort that we didn't have more commercial fishing representation. I did observe that there was this year better representation from Lummi Nation than I've seen in the past. There were several booths that Lummi, they had Natural Resources was there from Lummi. Children of the Setting Sun had a very nice booth and good presentation. So it's an evolving event. I think we did get lucky with weather as well, but it was quite nice down there and good food. And we'll keep trying to make that better. But Kevin and his team did do a nice job in putting together a complicated event with lots of volunteers, lots of vendors, and more.
No, it was well put together. We just missed a couple of things.
Yep, we did. I wanted to see, Rob, can you have us meet our new airport director?
Yeah, Kip, come on down.
Door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3?
Hey, good afternoon. Kip Turner, your airport director.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Tell us something about where you've come from.
Well, I got started in aviation in around 1985, so it goes back a piece. But over the last 20 years, I've been more specifically running airports in Colorado, Florida, and California. Came to you most recently from Colorado. I actually did a stint with an airline to see if I'd like that side, and realized that my true calling is exactly what I'm back doing now. So I'm excited to be here.
Okay. I had somebody ask me to find out if you're a pilot yourself. Do you fly?
I am, yeah. I'm a single multi-engine rated pilot. Not a whole lot of time, about 400 hours probably, but
Yeah.
earlier in my career, I actually did a stint where I would fly a twin engine back and forth from Fort Rucker to Fort Belvoir, and got about 100 hours racked up then, and the rest of it's been sprung along in various planes and various locations. But yeah, I am
Okay.
hoping to get a plane out here one of these days. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome.
thanks.
Welcome, Kip.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
My last question, maybe for Brian, I get periodic questions about having more vegetation and specifically trees around the pump track. When can we think about that in our long-term planning? I know there's some questions about the cap, and why we now have more staff who are down there watering and maintaining that facility. So it seems like, to me, we have some opportunity to keep trees alive better than we have in the past. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's not something I'd heard of recently, so it's good to always know like what we're hearing, and we can add those kind of easy things onto our to-do list for the interim uses and all that. One thing I would say is that we did just install our ground staff just installed trees and like ground cover along the parking lot, the temporary parking lot we have there. That was actually a permit requirement if that was there for a few more years. That we could put in some vegetation there. So we've done that. That just went in last week. We're also then one of the other interim uses we're looking at is even like containerized, like a pea patches. There's other vegetation type of things we're talking about. But yeah, adding, there's not really any restrictions to plants or planting. It's really just there's a lot of foundations and other things. There wasn't any irrigation when we first started doing this. So yeah, that's definitely something we could put on our list of things to add to it, just to kind of to green it up a bit. And there's other benefits for that for other reasons too. So of course.
Yeah, definitely for some shade and dust control,
Yeah.
For wind. I think there's some long-term benefits, and it's just kind of can feel like a moonscape down there without any vegetation.
Yeah.
But I think getting that into our planning would be helpful, because it is a request I get on periodically.
Sure. Yeah, we even have some larger potted trees that were offered up for us to kind of use, and so we could look at that as another option too. So we'll take this idea back and noodle it a bit, because that's a great feedback.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we have to be a little bit careful down there, because we plant stuff and it starts growing and people expect it to be there, and we have to tear it out. Then there's that part of it
Right.
too.
That's right, and that's why sometimes those potted kind of like raised beds that you could move around, you can relocate. And we have it in the portal. There's a bunch of those that recently this year that really look great. They add a lot of color and other places to sit and other things like that. So, and then that you don't have that same concern as well. So we'll add that to the list.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it for me. Any other final thoughts or items?
I have none.
Nope. All right. We are done. Thank you. Zoom is off.
Oh, we have two commissioners. We have to pass this. So
Okay,
it's just-
I am going to reopen the public meeting. We have a late-breaking item that we are adding to our consideration.
I don't know, someone's presenting it.
Can you zoom in on the phone so we can hear?
You want to wait for Commissioner Bell, or?
Why don't you start teeing it up for us?
Sure. Tiffany D. Simone, Director of Maritime. So part of our MARAD project requires this permit that we've been waiting on, and we've been waiting on one last piece of information from the Suquamish. We did, in fact, receive that agreement. Yeah. Commissioner Bell, can you hear me? Okay. Well, this agreement didn't arrive in time for this commission deadline, and so we would like to have a motion to have the executive director be able to execute the agreement.
Okay. I'll make a motion for our executive director to execute a motion to complete all permit requirements for the MARAD grant project and dredging.
I'll second that motion. We'll have a discussion. Any discussion?
Questions, Commissioner Bell? Not hearing any, we'll move to vote. Carrie, please. Our motion is to we'll move to approve the motion that I just discussed. Commissioner Bell?
Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Next August.
$8,000.
If I can jump in, I think it's 8,000 for the approvals, for the support, and then there could be additional costs for gear loss.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. There you go.
Thank you.
Now we're done again.
But that's all, folks.